This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Making mistakes in their life might cause us to internalize shame, guilt, and regret. Striving for perfection leads us to reach towards unattainable goals and feeling like a failure when we don't reach them. Experiencing our emotions intensely and being reactive might result in living in shame, guilt, and regret for experiencing things on a more emotional level than others. What if what we need is radical acceptance of who we are, while also holding space for growth to be better? Being a better version versus the best version is more realistic. It is more achievable. It is more nurturing. It allows for mistakes, growth, healing, and it allows us to reconnect with the person we want to become and find again. Valeria interviews Carissa Alt-Frankard. She is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Wisconsin. She has been working in the mental health field in various capacities for over 15 years. Her experience ranges from in-home ABA therapy for children diagnosed with ASD, social skills groups for young kids and teens, case management for the chronically homeless population, and as a psychotherapist for an outpatient mental health clinic. Carissa developed Be Your Better Self, LLC, after using it as a personal mantra for growth in her own life. She feels the word best promotes perfection in terms of growth, which is unattainable. She believes working towards a better version of ourselves allows for mistakes, vulnerability, and growth all at the same time. When she's not putting on her therapist hat, Carissa is busy being a mom to Eaton and Daxton and spending time with her husband Tyler. In her free time, she enjoys working out, going for walks and hikes, reading, shopping, and watching mindless things on TV. Meet Carissa at BeYourBetterSelfLLC.com. Here's the interview with Carissa Alt-Frankard. In your own words, who is Carissa Alt-Frankard?
Yeah, so I'm definitely somebody who wears a lot of hats. I think first and most important, I'm a mom to my two boys, Easton and Daxton. I'm a wife to my husband, Tyler, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a mental health therapist and business owner. But all of those are kind of just labels, I think, and part of my identity. And they definitely give me a huge sense of purpose in my life today. But I am just also somebody I continue to evolve and grow and learn and change. And I think I'm just living this human experience kind of day to day, just like everybody else. So
what is that about being a mother that makes us feel even more, let's say, rich when it comes to the purpose, having purpose and meaning in this experience, Carissa?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know if motherhood was something that I wanted in my life, actually, for a long time. But since having my kids, I think I don't know, there's like this switch that just kind of flips. And I feel like everything that I do now is for them and because of them. And I think I've just grown so much and changed so much too since having them in definitely a positive way, in a way that I think without having kids, I think I would have gotten there still. But they pushed me to kind of do it sooner. So
right. Yeah, I have heard that's the greatest love of all. I know it's a song, and it might sound like a
Yeah.
cliche, but
Yeah.
it is, isn't it? Is the if there's a kind of love that we experience that's the deepest, it would be the love of a mother for their children.
Yeah. It's just unconditional, just immediately. So,
You would love them no matter what, right, Carissa?
yes. Yes,
Regardless.
absolutely.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
that's beautiful. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if we can do that without biologically having children. Do you think that the rest of us, human beings who chose not to have children or cannot have children, can we still experience unconditional love? Is that something that?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that absolutely. You know, I think it's just getting to that place of loving somebody, like you just said, no matter what, no matter what the circumstances and experiences are. And I think we can definitely have that without kids.
I believe that too. It's something the experience that I really wish to have, and I think I am having in at this
Hmm.
time with my husband and my dog.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing how we sometimes feel like we are not capable of doing certain things, but it takes relationships. That's what this life to me. It's really all about too, in the sense of growing and evolving. It seems like we need
Hmm.
one another to get
Yeah,
there.
connectedness. Connection and connectedness is so important, I think.
And speaking of connection, and that's the work you do as a therapist, how did you choose, or how did therapy choose you? How did you become a
Yeah.
therapist?
Yeah, well, so you know what, honestly, I actually wanted to be a teacher for most of my childhood. It's what I had thought was kind of in the cards for me. And I think like most therapists or people who are in more of like a healing profession, we experience our own mental health or our own traumas, and there's this shift. And that was definitely my experience too. And I remember taking an intro to psychology class my senior year of high school. And that just sort of set my path for me. I love that class and I love learning about the brain and how it works. And it was so fascinating to me. So, yeah, that really, I think, my own personal experience. And then taking that course, it just solidified that that was my new direction and path that I needed to go.
So you felt like a calling, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I see here often. I hear from so many of us, for
Hmm.
myself and others that I interview. Another question that I usually ask to therapists, especially, is that mental health. How do you define mental health these days?
Yeah, so I feel like mental health really embodies the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies of all of us. And I think at any point in our life, there can be times where we're off balance or we're not in alignment with one of those bodies. And when we're not, then we start to experience this spectrum of different symptoms. And it can be, really mild, minimal, very, just small symptoms to very, very large, significant chronic symptoms and anywhere in between. And so, really looking at mental health, it's trying to work towards kind of reflecting where is this, this misalignment or this unbalance, and how do we make decisions every single day to work towards that balance and work towards that alignment? Because when one of those areas is off, then I think everything is off. So it's really all the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies coming together and having this alignment and balance.
Is that possible to? Because I have experienced that. I mean, it's possible for
Hmm.
me, but I know it's not an experience for everyone. That my body's not feeling well,
Hmm.
but because I have been
Hmm.
engaging so many practices, spiritual practices like meditation, and in contact with so many amazing people like yourself, then
Hmm.
it's easy for me to just not to ignore physical pain or any imbalance in the body, but it's easy for me to kind of accept what is happening to the body in a peaceful
Hmm.
way and kind of carry on to do what I have to do to bring the balance back. So it
Hmm.
doesn't affect my mental health in a way when I'm not physically well.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense too. I think acceptance, you're hitting on another big component, I think, for me and working with my clients is that idea of acceptance, because we work really hard, I think, every single day to fight what is actually going on, whether it's, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, and when we do that, there's this internal conflict that we experience. And when you can actually get to a place of accepting what is happening, that just lets go of so much stress, and you can find that balance and alignment. So I definitely don't think that there needs to be this perfect balance or perfect alignment by any means. Everybody is so individual and unique with what that needs to look like for them. But acceptance is a huge piece of this.
How do you describe the spiritual body, Carissa?
You know, that's something I feel like a little bit that that's kind of my journey where I'm still kind of trying to explore a little bit.
Yeah.
I think really the spiritual body, though, it comes to connecting with that inner voice for yourself, really getting at the core of who you are and what you believe in and what you value, and trying to, again, make those decisions that align with that. I think the spiritual body, I'm definitely not, I'm not very religious, but I'm trying to find my connection to a higher power and a higher spirit. That's something I think I'm still searching for a little bit. But even if you don't have something like that, I think you can find it inside, and find it in your core and your inner voice.
So another question I had here was about healing, but since you answered that question about mental health, I guess it's the same. It goes back to balance. The question was about the goal of healing. Would you answer the same way, Carissa? Balance?
I think so. It's well, kind of. I think it's a both balance and that alignment, but also the acceptance piece that we talked about before. I think that gets to it just helps us move towards that place of healing. Definitely. So I think it's kind of both of those things.
Another question that I've read, and one of the topics we'll be covering today is self-care. So I have an open question for you about self-care and self-love. Are they one and the same from your perspective?
I think so. To me, they are, because I think that self-care is kind of the practice of self-love, I guess. It's kind of putting that love that you have for yourself into action, and creating habits and routines around taking care of yourself and your needs every single day. So I guess they're a little bit different, but they're kind of enmeshed as well.
The purpose of the human experience, what do you feel that is? If we have one purpose here, what would that be?
I think it's connection, and connection to ourselves, and connection to other people, our experiences, our environment. I think it really just boils down to connection.
Yeah, that's another beautiful insight and beautiful answer I often hear, because it is true. And I wonder if that the sense of connection comes from empathy. Would you say that empathy is a big part of it, Carissa?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're able to have empathy towards other people and their experiences without judgment and without shaming them, and just removing that, we can really, that's how we can connect with people. I mean, it's showing up and being there to listen and support and understand their experiences from their perspective without that judgment piece. And gosh, if we could do that, I think there'd be so much more connection in the world.
That's true. That means everybody would become a therapist. Yeah. Somebody like you.
Probably, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what comes to mind. No judgment, holding space for others with empathy. That's your work.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate what you do. We do need more therapists in the world.
Yes, we do. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
And it would be even better if we all could become our own therapists.
Yeah.
I mean, you guiding others to find the healing methods and practice them. But in the end, we are the ones that are healing ourselves because, right? We are our own healers in the end.
Yeah. I think that actually is a big misconception of therapy, honestly, is that when people kind of walk through the door, there's this expectation that I'm going to have all the answers and I'm going to give you all the advice and I'm going to fix whatever it is that you're experiencing. And I can, listen and walk with you through this journey of exploration and trying to figure it out. But the answers usually lie within the person. They're within themselves. And just through talking and processing and exploring, you uncover that truth for yourself.
It is one of the biggest misconceptions. I agree.
Yeah.
I remember having that misconception myself. I was not doing therapy, but I was a spiritual seeker. So I always looking for teachers that would save me or would give me all the answers, right? Like do the work for me. And that never happened.
Yeah.
So in the end, we have to do the work and be open to it. And I love curiosity. I think that opens the door a lot for healing. Just become curious and do it anyway, like a session or two, therapy session, or whatever it is. In my case, doing spiritual, let's say, studies, and then I ended up finding my own answers. And it's sad that most people don't know that. I see around me a lot of my family members. And we wanted to kind of guide them and almost give them the answers. But then I always stop myself. That doesn't really, they got to find it for themselves. And most of us are not ready, right, Carissa? For those answers within.
Yeah. Well, it's scary. It's scary to be vulnerable and to open up, yourself to really yourself is what it comes down to. That's a very scary process. And for most, they just want to keep that door closed.
It's a sad thing. Do you have a healing story yourself? Did you have to heal something in order to be the person that you are today?
I definitely have had my own experiences for sure. And I think that I've been sort of blessed, I think, as being a therapist to kind of help myself along this journey. But I've worked with therapists myself. I think most therapists would tell you that they've worked with somebody to kind of work towards healing, their own story and their own journey. So yes, I'm again no different than anybody else out there. I've had to do the work too, which is also, I think, of value because it's my way of connecting even deeper with my clients, because I can understand, even if our, situations, experiences, circumstances are different, I can still understand what hurt and pain and sadness really feel like. And I think that it helps build that trust in the therapeutic relationship.
Right. That's true. I was reflecting about this yesterday, just walking I think we came from the park, my husband and I was thinking about, why do we have to know the opposite, like sadness, in order to appreciate happiness? Is that something that's really almost like an inevitable part of this human experience?
I sort of think so, because I think that allows for growth. It allows for a higher understanding of you and your world and your experiences and everything around you. So I don't think... I think growth can happen without the hurt, but I think many of us experience the hurt and the pain in order to grow from it.
Why do we suffer, Carissa? What are the main causes for human suffering?
I think it's not acknowledging the suffering and where it's coming from. I think kind of goes back to with the people that aren't ready to go through that healing process. We stuff our experiences and emotions down and we bury them so deep. And the suffering, it's got to come out. And so it comes out, in emotional explosions towards other people, or it manifests physically in our bodies. And we get a lot of, pains or aches or sickness. And so I think suffering really is not even acknowledging that there's healing that needs to be done.
So it is pushing away, trying to escape pain, right?
Avoidance.
I see that a lot. And then we have all these other numbing, let's say, methods. I see how I don't watch TV or mainstream TV or newspaper, none of that. I'm kind of out of that reality. But I do hear that there's a lot of addiction issues happening everywhere in the world.
Yes, of various types.
Right. Would you say that that's one of the main reasons, again, why the cause for this epidemic of addiction, people being addicted to all sorts of things?
It's avoidance.
Avoidance. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, avoidance and not acknowledging the suffering and the healing that needs to happen. I think for a lot of people, it's easier to, get immersed in, TV or their phones or alcohol or whatever it is, and rather than actually sitting with their emotions, because that's vulnerable, it's open and it's honest and it's so scary. So that tends to be the easier way out for people, but it's really not an out. You will just continue to suffer and you won't move towards that place of healing and growth that would be so beneficial
I
for
know.
you.
It goes back to the concept of being ready. So
Yeah.
some of us are not ready to look deeper within. Do you see feelings and emotions being the same thing? Would you define them the same way, or are they different?
Hmm. You know, I think I kind of use them interchangeably. So when I describe things, I my gut tells me yes, that I do feel like they're the same thing. I don't know that I've ever really thought about them being too different because I use them so much interchangeably.
Yeah, so they are the same thing from your
Yeah, I think
perspective.
so.
I hear different answers. I always ask that question. I'm curious to know. Like
Uh-huh.
feelings,
Yeah.
emotions, are they the same? Some people say they're different. They describe it differently. But in the end, it's all about the expression of that, right? Feelings on emotions. And then when you talk about avoidance, does it have to do with relationships again? Like that failing to connect deeper with people around us. And that's why we kind of avoid to uncover those feelings that's true to us because we are afraid to be judged by others.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if that's something that's actually happening. Why are we so afraid to express our feelings and emotions?
A lot of us have had that experience of being shamed for it and judged for it, whether it's from a friend or a teacher or a parent or a sibling or a grandparent. We've shown our vulnerability, we've shown our emotions, we've expressed them, and we get shamed and judged for it. So that's, I think, people's first kind of learning experience where that is something I can't do. I can't, they learn to not then show their emotions and express their feelings. And because if they do, they can expect that they will be shamed or judged for it. And so that leads then to that avoidance. And I think avoidance, it's with the connection, it's not just connecting with other people, and the avoidance kind of leads to that, but it's also you're avoiding and not connecting with yourself.
So, what is a suggestion, a method that you use to teach your clients to reconnect, to connect with themselves? What is the first thing? Yeah. Oh, journaling.
Journaling. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Because I think journaling is also the safer way for people to express it. They don't. I always I kind of put this out there for my clients that it's nothing that they have to necessarily bring in here and expose themselves to me in that way, but just get yourself exposed to you, kind of look at what is going on inside, what is physically going on for you, what are you, emotionally, again, like mentally, physically, all of that, what are you experiencing right now in this moment, and just get reconnected to you. And I think through writing and journaling, that's really the first step that feels safest for people to explore that reconnection with themselves.
So, talk to me about you're the founder of Be Your Better Self. So, talk to
Yes.
me about, I know it's the name of your company, but it's also a method, a healing method.
I actually stumbled across this phrase. Oh, gosh, I was trying to think about when I did actually stumble across it, and I want to say it was probably about 10 years ago, and I I kind of used it as a guidance in my own life to really just get back to making decisions that align with the person that I want to show up to be every day for myself and for other people, and to kind of learn from the mistakes, and not coming from a place of shame, but just learning that these are mistakes and that's okay, kind of having that compassion for myself, and then making decisions to do better the next day. And because this has been a guidance in my life, it's sort of funny when I was thinking about starting my practice, I came up with 10 or 15 names. I think I was thinking too hard with it and trying to be super creative and, and I was sitting in bed with my husband one night and I looked at him and I was like, what about be your better self? That's been my guidance. For 10 years now, and it's helped me so much day to day, month to month, year to year to just make those changes for myself. It just made sense to offer this as guidance for my clients in my practice.
Right. It makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. The moment I saw it, especially the way you describe your own journey, and then comparing the better self with the best self that we hear a lot, right? Being the best version of yourself. It really sounds like it's putting a lot of pressure, being the best version. It sounds good, but we cannot see life as a best experience. I think it is a wonderful experience, but I don't know about being the best experience or having the best experience all the time. That's not possible.
I think I agree with you that best, it promotes this idea of perfection. And with perfection, that's unrealistic and unattainable goals that most of us are setting ourselves up to fail then. And we shouldn't look at it as failing, I think, being compassionate towards yourself because you made a mistake and learning and growing from that and making the decision to do better, it just allows for that vulnerability and then openness and honesty to make mistakes and be okay and be compassionate with yourself and just do it differently the next day. So that's really what better means to me in instead of best, because you do hear best, live your best life and be your best self and all of that. And if that speaks to people, doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, I never thought it that way. But then you caught my attention to this concept of better and best. Right. And also because it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? Practice, Carissa, being better too. It's not a destination.
No.
Yeah, when I hear the best, it sounds like a destination too. Like, oh, wow, I want to be the best version of myself. And then when it seems like you wanted to get somewhere and stay there, which wouldn't be life then, because life is always changing. We are life.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, very beautiful message. There's something curious about you with the Be Your Better Self that I read, that you have a tattoo, I believe. It's your mantra, but you also have a tattoo.
I do.
You do, right? That's so awesome. It's in a place that you can clearly see every day, or it's hidden?
Yes, that I can clearly see every day. Yes.
Yes, right. That's what I thought.
Yes, it is.
You can look at it and remind yourself.
It again, it's just something that's so meaningful for me. And I have notes on this in my phone from years ago when I started, this mantra, and it's on my body. It just makes sense. Again, it just made sense that this was my private practice name.
Another topic for our conversation today that's staring at me is boundaries, communication boundaries.
Yes.
That's a tough one. Learning to say no. So how do we do that has been one of my biggest challenges. To say no.
You're not alone. No. You're not alone. Boundaries are incredibly difficult. And I think one of the first steps that I work with my clients on is just encouraging them to reflect on when they interact with people or specific environments. Notice what happens after you leave those people or those environments, because we don't pay attention to those patterns. We just, we leave a situation or a person or persons and we vent or we complain or, we feel exhausted and we're not really sure why. But when you start to notice those patterns, then you can start to notice the people and environments in your life that need boundaries. And I think I heard this actually from one of my own therapists, that when it comes to boundaries, we have this expectation that we need other people to respect our boundaries. But what it comes down to is we actually have to respect them ourselves. We can't expect that, someone is going to know what our boundaries are, and we can't expect that they're going to actually respect them. So it is learning how to say no, because then you're always going to be respecting your own boundaries with those people or within that environment.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And I love that insight about paying attention to the way we feel after we leave a situation, a meeting, or whatever it is that we got ourselves into. Yeah, that really resonates true. I remember feeling very exhausted and unhappy, really. And I had also body aches, like my stomach would hurt. I would have strong headaches too after meeting certain people, specific people.
Yes.
And I remember no one was like listening to me. My husband was saying, "Oh, you're just being too sensitive," or whatever it is. That's something that I learned to ignore these days, because some people, they do say that, "Oh, you're too sensitive. You shouldn't be." I mean, it's almost like you shouldn't be feeling this way. Yeah, I wonder what to say, what the response would be, because a lot of times I just stay quiet because there's nothing else to say when our feelings are not being recognized by other people. So do you encourage actually young clients to communicate those feelings with somebody and close to them, or just with a therapist?
I think it usually feels safer to share that with themselves or the therapist. I think communicating boundaries is a really difficult thing, which is again why I loved what my therapist said, and putting it in that perspective that, you have to respect your own boundaries, not expect other people to respect them for you. And when we communicate our own boundaries to somebody else, I think we do kind of expect that, okay, now I've put it out there and they're going to respect this the next time. But then they don't, and then they don't again and again and again. And we feel so frustrated with that relationship. And so when you flip that and you reframe it, that I actually have to respect my own boundaries here. And I need to check in, do I have the physical, mental, and emotional capacity to go and be with this person or persons today? Can I put myself in that environment today? How am I doing right now? And can I handle this? And if the answer is no, then you got to start communicating no and being assertive in that communication. I think the other part of this is when we say no, a lot of times we end up feeling like we have to follow up with a reason or an excuse as to why we're saying no. And that's another part of the boundaries, that learning to respect that, because you don't have to have a reason. No is no. And that should just be enough.
I guess if I can communicate clearly with you here today, my boundary practices and trying to connect deep with people. How do we balance that, Carissa? Setting boundaries and connecting deeper, or searching for that?
Yeah, well, I guess I kind of follow that up with the question of, for my clients, it would be, do you really want to deeply connect with the people who you feel like are violating your boundaries? And I think a lot of us, when you think about it, would probably say no, and not, and in the sense that, you wish that maybe that relationship would be different. I think, a lot of my clients, the boundaries that they have to set are within the family. And that's really, really hard. I think it's much more difficult to set those boundaries within a family versus within, colleagues or with friends. And, so deep down, we want to connect with our family. We want to connect with our work environment. We want to connect with our friends. But if we're feeling disrespected and we're feeling violated and day in and day out with these people, how deep can that connection actually be? Because you can't really be your authentic self either. You can't trust the persons or the environment and to be authentic with them and to be vulnerable, because you've been shamed for that. You've been judged and dismissed for that. So I think I'd offer that sort of like reflection question, I think, to people.
That really resonates. Yeah, right. Do I really want to connect with them deeply? And the heart says yes, but then...
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I have been exposed to a lot of these ideas about the heart too, that doesn't always know, in a sense of it's boundaryless. It's limitless when it comes to love. And that might come from trauma too, because I remember having a very traumatic childhood and connecting was not really possible because my parents were abusive. So I couldn't connect with them. But then I kept trying as a child to correct them.
Yeah.
And then I did that my whole life with everybody I met, especially romantically. I was trying to make them love me or see would do anything for love. And that now it doesn't, it's just not true anymore. I learned not to trust the heart. And that was kind of really sad. I went through a grief period, not trusting myself, my intuition.
Yeah. I think that is it's a sad and hard experience for people and realization. I think that people sometimes have to come to, like you just described, is recognizing that, you can acknowledge what's in your heart, but that you can't necessarily lean into it because of what you're experiencing and how it's affecting you. And then breaking those patterns, it's hard.
I know you have on your website, you talk about you write about the 5 self-care practices, the top 5. And then you mentioned journaling, and then expressing gratitude, the to-do list, setting small goals. And then you mentioned movement and stillness. I love that you had those 2 there. They seem to contradict one another.
They are. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, what you meant by it. Talk to me for a moment about that, movement and stillness.
Yeah, I think, they sort of offer the opposite for our experience. Movement, it's so beneficial. It helps our brain just function optimally, and it, releases those good, endorphins and hormones that we want to feel happy and motivated. And movement doesn't have to be, I have clients of all different walks of life. So movement doesn't have to be going for, this long distance run or picking up these heavy weights. It can be a lot. There's so many different types of movement out there, but it does promote this feeling of just feeling good and feeling happy and energy. You feel this energy after you do that. And then the stillness, we are on autopilot all the time. I think so many of us just move through the day without being present and without really stopping to notice what's going on around us or within us. And so by taking the time to just be still and just be quiet, and whether that's through, a meditation or a guided meditation practice, or practicing some grounding techniques, or even just, sitting and having coffee or tea and looking out the window and just noticing what's going on, having that moment of still and quiet is so beneficial. So we absolutely need both.
Again, that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Movement, stillness. When it comes to stillness, do you recommend meditation, mindfulness meditation?
I do. And I try to encourage people to explore just different types of meditation to see what they gravitate towards. Even in my own practice, I do all of these things every day. So I can speak so much to how powerful they are because I do them myself. But through my journaling and gratitude and to-do list, I listen to a meditation music. It's not guided, and it just helps. I think it helps my mind really focus on what I'm doing. And then I listen to a guided meditation after that, which I absolutely love because that's more of my stillness time and my grounding time. So I really encourage my clients to explore meditation. And some, you get everybody that walks through the door, some where they're absolutely turned off and you need to talk about it several times before they might be open to the idea, and some who have been practicing it every single day.
I have to say, it's not a lot of people, they believe that it's a really hard thing to do. Most people say they don't have time for meditation or any kind of stillness, but it's so necessary. And that's just been, I read something about how important it is for the brain. Actually, there's something about brain health that is connected to meditation and stillness. Not just mental health, but the physical brain also operates better, functions better. I think improves everything. From my experience, it has been incredible. And you also mentioned something else that caught my attention was under your approach, essential oils. I love them.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, gosh, I have so many. Do you recommend one scent over another? or doesn't
It
really
really,
matter?
no, it really depends on what symptoms my client is experiencing. Um, I would say though, probably the one that I recommend the most is I would say it's probably lavender because so many people, whether their symptoms are coming from a place of depression or they're experiencing, ADHD or, whatever it might be, there's so much stress, and lavender is such a calming and soothing essential oil. I have them in my office going for every single session too, because I just think it promotes. There's something nice about that aromatherapy. It just feels really nice and good and soothing and calming. But I also encourage my clients if I'm not making a specific recommendation, I encourage them to explore because I do believe that they gravitate towards different scents, and what might be calming and soothing or necessary for me might not work for the next person. So I really encourage them to just explore.
Yeah, lavender. That's interesting that you said that because that's one essential oil that I often don't get and I hesitate
Okay.
every time.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
get different ones like
Hmm.
frankincense,
Yep.
like orange, and I have all kinds of cedarwood. I think you pronounce it, not
Oh, yeah.
sure that all
Hmm.
kinds of, but I don't. Lavender is one that I kind of hesitate, and I wonder
Hmm.
why. Maybe because the body doesn't need. I don't know. At that,
Hmm.
yeah, I never get. I do have it, but I don't use it as often. And it's funny you said that. That most people,
Hmm. And I think that that just speaks too to how individual this is. I
right,
mean,
right.
for one person, they're not going to. I have other clients who lavender is just not something that they're whether it's they're uncomfortable using, they don't like the scent, whatever it is. But so you're not alone with that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's why encouraging people to just explore. And I have several um, different types of oils in my office too, so I can bring them out with clients and kind of
Mm,
show them different things and different
yeah,
scents, so they can explore that with me.
yeah. I
So a lot
love
of people,
that. Right.
if
That's
they're not
fun.
using them, a lot of people, it's kind of a foreign thing, and they're not really
Yeah,
sure where to start. So
right.
doing it with somebody that you've built this trust with and you can explore together can be a nice experience.
Yes, very nice, beyond nice,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
oh, I love that. Connecting in a meaningful way, in a healing way. That's one of the topics for today. We talked briefly earlier. Perhaps we have been talking about this the whole time. Aligning with your values to improve feelings of self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the values. That's one of my biggest one. What is your biggest value, Carissa,
Oh,
that
one of
drives
my
your car?
biggest. Yeah. um, I think I think health is probably one of my biggest ones. Honestly, I think it's really where a lot of my decisions come in every single day for myself and for my family. So, yeah, I think health is a big one for me.
Thank you so much, Carissa, for being you and for sharing your wisdom here in what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're almost at the end, and before we say goodbye for today, I have a few more questions for you, ending questions. Would you like to add anything else that you left unsaid?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of it. I think the only thing is I'm just so incredibly grateful for having this opportunity to speak with you today. And I think your podcast and what you do and this healing journey that I think you're on and you invite everybody else that listens to be on with you is just incredible. So I just want to thank you so much for all of the work that you do.
Oh, thank you. The body appreciates. The heart and the
Mm.
mind, they are all in,
Yeah.
but the body
Yeah.
sometimes complain, what are you doing here? Instead of being on the beach or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest values, that connection, connecting in a
Hmm.
meaningful way. That
Yeah.
oh my God, I would do anything for that. I just have to be
Hmm.
careful, but in a sense of just doing too much. But I absolutely love. I call these meetings here my sacred moments, and really,
Oh,
they
I
really
love
are.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sacred they are. So a few more questions for you. I'll ask you this one, Carissa. What do you love most about being in a human body?
I think the senses that you get to experience every single day. Because that's really, I think, what our body gives us, that ability to touch and smell and taste and see. And you experience the world so differently when you pay attention to that. So I think that is definitely a big thing that I value about the physical body.
It's interesting how we can take that for granted, right? A lot of times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's another practice of mindfulness, just feeling everything,
Yes.
right? Being here,
Mm-hmm.
present.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, I'll ask you this question as my final question. If there was one message you wish everyone to take with them from this conversation, what would that be?
One message. I think the message would be connect. Just take pause and connect with who you are. Reconnect, if that's what it is, with who you are, because that will allow you to just experience life differently and connect with other people and your environment differently. It'll help you align with who you are and what you want and give you that vision to just, I think, be and do better.
Billion times yes to that beautiful vision that we can do that, reconnect with ourselves. That's so true. That's the only reason I believe we are here. It keeps coming back to me as a powerful guide that we are here to connect with our own selves and then expand that from that. But our first job is to connect with ourselves. So thank you so much for having that as a foundational message for your work too, not just message, because embodying that's very important. So that's what you're doing by offering your services. You embodying the message. So I love that, Carissa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And before we say goodbye for today again, what's the best place to find you?
Well, so I feel like I'm pretty easy to find. My website and then Facebook and Instagram profiles are all Be Your Better Self LLC, and then the website is .com. So, and I mean, you can really connect with me on any of those.
Right. And I'll have the link of your website on your podcast profile as well.
Great.
Thank you so much again for your presence here today, Carissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now, my dear.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Carissa Alt-Frankard and her work, please visit BeYourBetterSelfLLC.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.